So welcome to another episode of the Right Brain Insights podcast. I'm your host, David Maher, and I am here today with Lisa Cavill of Cavill Co Bookkeeping. Today we're going to dive into the bookkeeping industry and how Lisa and I have worked together on a number of clients and her experience in running a business, being a bookkeeper, and all the fundamentals of that in Australia.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank
First
you.
things first, though, got a little something for you.
Oh.
So this is actually out of America, but there are some. So we're working with a company here in Australia that imports this. But it's from a company called Jocko Fuel.
Oh, yeah.
And they're hydration packs. So
Oh,
really
cool.
cool for travelling around. I know you do a lot of trips up to Sydney and stuff.
I do, yeah.
So yeah, add that into a bit of water. It's some of the
Yeah.
best in the biz.
Okay.
that you can get. Yeah,
You should have given me this earlier.
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, pleasure.
And thank you for having me.
No, absolute pleasure. So, Lisa, you and I have been working together for a number of years.
Yeah, I think it's about 3 or 4 now.
Yeah, something like that. Now, so you're a bookkeeper by
Bass
training?
agent.
A bass agent.
Bass
yes.
agent.
Yes. Is a bookkeeper like an old school term?
Oh, well, it used to be the general consensus,
Yeah.
you're a bookkeeper. And we
But now
still
it's a
call
bass
ourselves
agent.
bookkeepers,
Yeah.
but now they regulated the industry.
Yeah.
So that just your average Joe couldn't be helping someone with their books on
Yeah.
something so important. So yeah, they introduced the bass agent thing, and
Yeah.
so basically we can give advice, whereas bookkeepers can't. That's the overall arching difference. So
Fair enough.
yeah,
On that front, for the audience, what is bookkeeping? And as a bass agent, what is the spectrum of your advice?
that's a loaded question. So much. So I guess the first part was what is a bookkeeper, and then what's a
Yeah.
bass agent?
What's bookkeeping?
What's
What is
bookkeeping? Well, keeping of your books, keeping them in check basically, so that any business decisions you're making is based off accurate information, while also ensuring we're meeting your liabilities, your GST, coding things correctly for the accountants for income tax. So basically that's just a very simplified version of what a bookkeeper does.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I describe it as accurate and up-to-date financial records.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yep. Said it better.
It's in the name.
Yep.
The keeping of the books.
Keeping of the books.
Yeah.
And we keep them well.
Yeah. And in Australia, a BAS agent, a BAS being business activity statement, an agent being my understanding is that that allows you to lodge everything up to but excluding income tax.
Pretty much.
So you can do GST, PLIG, super, you can advise on payroll. Yep. And all the reconciliation and everything associated with that.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome.
We like to say that we basically tie it up in a beautiful bow for the accountants.
Yeah.
They get a nice, beautiful database, and then your income tax can be done without without any issues.
Yeah.
Seamlessly, basically.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So what got you into this? Like of all the things you could possibly do in the world,
Funnily enough,
from bookkeeper to astronaut.
I don't think I actively made the decision. So I feel like the steps throughout my life kind of just kept me pointing me in this direction. I never actively decided until I decided to be a BAS agent. Then that was a much more conscious decision to bring all my skills into a platform where I could help so many more. So I had a lot of friends, as I learnt through my career jobs and was educating myself back at TAFE, I started to field a lot more questions from friends with businesses. So then I started to go, oh, wow, that really helped them. Or, oh, wow, they're now really excited about this. I'm like, oh, there's something here. So I think that's kind of where it came from. Yeah, and then it also gave me flexibility. I didn't particularly want to be working for anyone anymore as an employee. I wanted to kind of do my own thing.
Yeah, perfect. And you were telling me before we started filming, but so you grew up in Sydney and you had a number of family members who were working in trades in their own businesses and so on and so forth.
So my dad was a tradesman, so he did filtration for pools. I'd like to point out we never had a pool. So I do joke and say that's a bit of child abuse, but anyway, that's a different podcast.
That is the way with trades.
Yes.
My old man was a plumber. We probably had the worst plumbing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or the plumbers have like the gutter just going to the ground, you know? Or, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, we did.
So I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this trauma.
That's very standard.
And my uncle has had a plumbing business for 30 plus years. Then my cousins have worked for him, and then one of my other cousins that worked for him has now gone out and doing drainage. So My brother runs a company as well for it's a sports management company, so he provides opportunities for Australian players to play overseas. So we're very community focused. We like to make sure we're giving back. That just seems to be part of our DNA. And yeah, just watching the businesses. And then my friends, you know, in my early 20s, 30s, friends were starting businesses, landscapers, plumbers. So yeah, I just kind of was just listening and watching what they're doing and going, wow, a lot of this stuff I do, I could fine tune and really help so many others. And I get such a kick out of it.
Yeah. I think that background is something that we see in working with you when introducing clients, and you have a great ability to connect with them.
Oh, thank you.
That's really, really cool.
Well, it feels genuine because I'm always really excited.
Yeah, totally. But it's hard. It's strangely hard to find really, really good bookkeepers.
Well, I remember you and I on our first conversation. I remember all that time ago. You would ring me and then I would say something and then you said, can I ask you another question? And then it just kept going, can I ask you another question? Because whatever I was saying, it was prompting you to think of something else. And then he said, what is your background? And I said that I'd been a finance and operations manager. And I remember you saying to me, oh, now that's why I know why you talk like you do.
Yeah. Because it's interesting, like what you're talking about with business owners, like that's what we come across, why you work so well with so many of our clients is these business owners, they've started a business off the back of their own trade. That's our client base.
And they're great at it.
Yeah, they're really good at what they do, but now they've got a business to run, and now, irrespective of their size, whether they're a sole trader or they've got 10 people, 100 people working with them, whatever it might be, they need to, the business will demand that they are making decisions, and they need to inform those decisions.
Yep.
And something that we see time and time again is where businesses have gone off the rails because they've made bad decisions, often informed. Either they've made a totally uninformed decision, or
which does happen.
They
go rogue.
Yeah, that happens all the time because their instincts work, and now they get to a certain size, and their instincts don't function the way they thought they would.
Correct.
But where they're trying to inform the decision off of incorrect records.
Information, yeah.
Yeah, really bad information.
That's exactly
it's
right.
an interesting process where we bring you in to do that little mini audit of your new clients.
Love an audit. Love it.
The kind of things that we find.
That's where the nerd in me really comes out.
Yeah. It's great to see. It's great to see. So in that respect, tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've come across in businesses where the records are wrong. Like how does bookkeeping go wrong, and what does it do? Like what's some of the stuff you've seen? How does it go wrong?
Far out, Dave. That's a whole series of podcasts where it goes wrong.
I know you got some more stories.
I do, but basically, I think the overarching thing for me is super is the one that trips up, I find, the most. They think they've done it, they haven't done it right. Or just we've come across how you're processing the super versus the clearing date. So they think they're paying on time if they use a zero clearing house, and they pay it on the 28th of the month, but you're actually technically late then.
Yeah, and super's an important because it's so black and white. If the fund doesn't have it, then technically you've got to do an SGC.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah,
And they probably see the dates, the different dates on the super part of zero, but they wouldn't understand what it actually means. That's what it means, and we educate them. So that was just recently with one that we work with that I took over, and he's like, no, the super's up to date. I'm like, it's late. There's going to be a super guaranteed charge statement.
Yeah, and that's something we find all the time where when we meet a client, we'll look at their financial statements and almost read back to them, hey, your balance sheet is saying here that the ATO owes you money. Is that the case?
That's never the case. That's very rarely ever the case.
That's the case. And they're like, no, actually we have a legacy debt. Okay, so you've got a reconciliation issue here.
Yeah.
No, that's the big one I see is all the tax liabilities, GST, POIG, super, maybe income tax, whatnot.
And it's so
tax,
quick to
payroll
identify.
Tax, all these compliance obligations, they're just out of whack and all over the place.
Yeah. And it's actually not hard to get it back in line. But often I find when we do, well, I call it a file health check. Insurance tells me I have to. I find it's when you start delving into that, and I think I've used this expression with you before, it's like an onion. There's just another layer, then another layer, then another layer. Yeah. And you find this and you find this, and it just keeps snowballing. But eventually you get to the end and you've tidied it all up, and often we have to deliver bad news at that point sometimes. But this is where I think it's really important with running a business that you have someone qualified looking over your books. It's a relatively inexpensive process and cost. Get them to do it.
Oh, without a doubt. Like if you're in business, you have to have a bookkeeper with you. Maybe you can get away with it as a sole trader if you've done some sort of training in that area.
Yeah.
But even then, I'll give you an example. There's a company, they're an interstate one that we just started working with, and we did the scoping session with them, and again, the tax account's completely out of whack. Their margins are completely out of whack. You take one look at it on paper, you've shut the business down. It's making like 2%. So you're not even beating inflation here. What's really going on? Oh, they're running different property investments. They're running the expenses through that and not the income. So, okay, right. So first question, what's your margins really? Yeah. But the second question is, where the hell are you at with the ATO?
Yes.
Because the other thing I find with a bookkeeper is you're there to, a big part of it is making sure that the company is complying with the laws of the land.
Yes, absolutely.
If you don't do that, you're going to encounter very significant problems. Because you're dealing with the most powerful player in the land. Yeah. Yeah. And they're pretty patient, but they're going to escalate, and they're not going to stop until you answer the questions.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's much more of the nature of what it is now.
Yeah. And when we popped the lid on this company, the moment it wasn't yourself, we brought in a different bookkeeper for them, but they looked at 3 years of unlodged BASs. So
I feel like my heart's beating out of my chest. Oh my gosh!
I know. Yeah, but that was, and so we had to break the news to them. It's like, dude, you're personally liable for most of that. So even if you go into liquidation or administration, you won't wipe out the debt. It's going to follow you. Maybe bankruptcy. So actually, we need a plan here to trade through, because collapsing the entity has very serious ramifications.
Yeah, and you can't make that decision unless the financials are accurate. Yeah,
correct. So we can start manoeuvring, and that's fine. They've been able to turn on their revenue, and we're seeing the margins now come through where it is, and that's like, they'll be okay. But it's a massive shock, because we've taken one look at it and we're like, this ain't what it appears to be. Yeah, it's interesting like that.
Yeah, I think you just you used to be able to have the businesses where you'd have the office girl that would just do all the data entry and it's right. It's not right.
Well, you and I deal a lot with husband and wife teams.
Yes.
And that's something that we've done too, where like there's a couple of clients here in Melbourne. It's a husband and wife team. Yeah. And actually, you're doing the lodgements. The wife is usually the wife doing the day-to-day. She's running payroll. She's doing the reconciliation, so on and so forth. And then, because you're doing the compliance lodgements, that's the check and balance to pick up that, oh, hey, actually, so and so that asset that you bought, no, it's not an expense, it's actually an asset. So, hey, next time, just put it here. And that way you're actually training them up as you go. Loss. Yeah, it changes the P&L for sure. But by picking up those mistakes through the lodgement process, you're helping to train them as they go, which is really cool.
And finding little things along the way where we're like, oh, did you know that you can actually do it this way and it's really like a lot easier or a lot quicker so, or this will make your life easier. How about we do it this way? Yeah. So I know one of the ones you're referring to there. Oh, she's amazing. I love her.
Yeah, there's some good eggs.
Yes.
But because like, how long have you been doing bookkeeping?
My business, so I have been doing it, I think I'm coming on almost 9 years.
Yeah.
But prior to that, my roles have been in financial positions. So the one prior to me starting out was finance and operations. The one before that was assistant accountant. And prior to that, it was just, general accounts roles, customer service.
Yeah, so like well over a decade.
Yeah, I've literally learnt from the bottom all the way up. And I got to learn, I was really lucky with jobs that, because I had enthusiasm, I would ask oh, can I go over there and do that? Or can I learn this? Or so, yeah, that's kind of got me to it where I am.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
attitude.
I'm not necessarily a traditional bookkeeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it.
Reason I'm wondering that is like, how have you seen things change over that decade plus experience?
Compliance.
It's
a very, I was going to say volatile. I don't want it to sound negative. Very, so many moving parts, so many things. Since COVID especially, they've started to roll out a lot more things that they put on hold during COVID. So, you know, the STP phase 1 and phase 2 and
single touch payroll.
Yes. Single touch payroll. Yes. And now it's complicating things. I understand why they're doing it and it makes sense, but now for, you know, you're just giving the example, husband and wife teams, you know, running a business, the complexity of STP is phenomenal. So it's almost, you have to engage a professional now.
Yeah, and STP is nothing that you actually have to pay. It's how you set up and execute your payroll.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you don't set it up correctly, it's a pain to go back at, especially at year end when you're about to lodge the final one, the finalisation, and you're like, uh-oh.
It's the same with, what's it called, TPAR? What's that, tax payment annual
Taxable
report?
payments annual reconciliation.
Yes.
So that's your subcontractors. I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
That's
because
coming
that
up.
was building, well, it is largely building and construction, but
and I think there's
heard
like taxis
that's going
and some
to expand
cleanings.
to
That
multiple
doesn't surprise
industries.
me, Dave. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
But I get what they're doing.
Yeah, and
So I understand
data
it.
matching,
Yeah. Oh yes.
payroll tax, work cover.
Yes, it's all getting
Seen
there.
those pop up.
And that's been from single touch payroll.
Yeah, correct. Because that's the risk now. Certainly, when I started working in the monetary space with businesses a decade ago, they were the things that people would, shall we say, try and get away with.
Yes.
Hey, it's okay if we pay super a couple of weeks late, or
don't worry about including that subcontractor. No.
Yeah, or actually we'll pay that subby cash. All these different things.
Cash.
And, yeah, cash. So
what's that?
Who knows? Yeah. But there would be a way to. You could almost fly under the radar.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Not that we would have, but yes, you can.
People would try, and you can understand. You can understand why. Whether you should or not is another question. But
correct.
The point is, back then there weren't the mechanisms in place, particularly the automatic ones. Where now, you know, these supercomputers are matching.
Yeah.
Hey, you're reporting this here, which should equal this here, and it's pretty damn easy to figure out whether it matches or not. Now that's creating an audit list with a probability, and away you go.
And I think soon it'll become, it's just a default thing. If all three don't match up, you're just going to get a flat out audit. They want to do an audit of
and
this.
And it's just resourcing.
And you have to prove why you've done it.
Yeah.
To be able to keep it as is, otherwise there could be penalties involved.
Exactly, and if you've got increasing levels of government debt, there is every incentive for the government to jump on that.
Yes. Well, same as us, I suppose. When someone owes us money, we're jumping on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Money makes the world go around.
Yeah, but we don't have to be re-elected.
No.
You know, so it's interesting.
Good point.
Yeah, and it's going to drive policy decisions.
Yeah.
Because that's actually one thing I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Right? You were telling me that when it comes to BAS agents, like fairly recently, maybe a year ago or something like that, the obligations of BAS agents have changed radically. Almost like you have to dob clients in if you see them.
That's pretty much what it's
something.
almost called.
Tell me more about what's going on there.
I haven't delved terribly much into it, but basically the overall idea is if you see some basically gross misconduct in the financials, like some active fraud, whatever.
Deliberate.
Anything
stuff.
Deliberate, correct. Okay, intentional. That's been done, you have to, and you have reasonable evidence to suggest that you're on the right track with that thought, that you have to basically report that to the Tax Practitioners Board. And that also includes if you do it. So you have to dob yourself in. So great concept, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But we're honest people. We can't help it. We do the right thing. So the idea is, and I understand why they're doing it, because, you know, income tax is income tax. We've all got to pay it, you know, and if you're actively trying to deceive the government, well, obviously there's going to be repercussions. So even if it wasn't actively, you didn't actively do it, but you made the mistake, I'm sure there'd be provisions for that, especially if you've come forward yourself. But it
seems like right now, though, it's pretty unclear.
That's exactly it. So they've basically said you don't have to actually be 100% right. And if you're unsure, they've also indicated you have to tell them anyway. But then they're also saying, you know, further down in the clauses that the paragraphs that it was, but then you can also be sanctioned if it ends up being false. So you're like, hang on a minute. So you told us we don't have to have actual evidence. Sanction? So we could be in trouble for lodging a false claim. Fines
or registration removed or what? They don't.
Unsure.
Yeah.
I guess maybe severity of the situation, maybe.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I haven't heard of it happening yet, so this is quite
That's
new.
the other thing. So there's going to be precedent set eventually.
And also, what's the definition of serious breach?
Well, yeah.
Like, would it be a dollar value? Would it be...
One would hope so. But that's going to have to be found out through, I suppose, regulatory enforcement by Tax Practitioners Board or...
Yep. Tax Practitioners
Board. ATO or something like that. Yeah. It's a weird one because you're not the only bookkeeper I've spoken to about this, and everyone universally is nervous about it because it appears like, it sounds like the BAS agents now, nationally, are almost forced to act a bit like directors.
Yes.
That all of a sudden they're liable. BAS agents
we're
are liable for
now.
What their clients are doing. Yeah, that's mind-blowing. And the ramification, that's tectonic shifts to an industry.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know why they're going so aggressive with this, but I mean, that's beyond my pay grade, I guess. But I also think, you know, I read an article and it was saying, well, what about, you know, someone might be uneducated or might have a vendetta against an accountant, for instance. This is very broad. But just even though it's not found out to be true and whatnot, you've now ruined the reputation of this poor individual who probably really did the best that they could at that time or with the information they
So like if I dodgied up an email that looks like it came from you advising me to do something dodgy, then I could dob you in under, and you'd have, let's not do that.
No, it's kind of like pitting us against each other, and it feels icky.
Well, pitting you against clients.
Yeah, it puts us in the position where we're having to say, well, I mean, we're going to anyway. We're always going to advise our clients to do the right thing, and we're always going to, you know, enforce that. But at the same time, we're the ones delivering that message, and then so we wear the grunt of the aggression, the frustration,
But the advice versus the liability. Usually there's hey, we're here to advise. The decision is ultimately yours. But if you're held as liable for
I don't even think that's going to fly anymore.
It seems
I'm waiting for this to evolve and hear, you know, because I'm on a lot of social forums with other tax agents, BAS agents, and these people are amazing. And the information share is incredible.
Totally.
So
but it seems like people are scared.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
And what do you price? What's the impact to clients? So you're basically dealing with... you operate in a regulated industry. You have to have a license to create your income.
Correct.
Cool. And the people that grant the license are executing a around find out policy.
Yes.
Effectively.
That's one way to describe it.
Well, what's a serious breach? What's the ramifications?
Yes.
How do you get... what are we actually liable for? Who's liable? To what extent?
Yeah. And you're talking to an industry where we like a checkbox, a nice clear line in the sand. We like to be able to go, okay, well, it's met this, it's met this, it's met this,
I didn't
it's met
think
this.
about that.
Okay, I'm very confident now that I'm on track because we all respect each other in this industry. We've all worked hard. We all genuinely want to do the right thing by our clients.
And in your world, when you're dealing with the kind of compliance obligations you're dealing with, they're largely black and white. There's almost no room for interpretation.
Correct.
Maybe a little bit on GST perhaps, but...
Probably why I love the industry so much. Numbers
Yeah,
don't
it's
lie.
black and white. Whereas income tax, there's actually a lot you can do.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
legitimately to move money here, and it's tax effective here.
Hats off to the tax agents.
Yeah, well, but that's government directing policy, right?
Yeah.
They provide tax incentives for you to try and do something.
Correct.
Cool. But when it comes to, hey, payroll and GST and particularly employee entitlements. It's black and white what it is. Work cover, so on.
Yeah, payrolls you've got to go around and find out.
Yeah, it's and that's the one you don't want to mess with.
No.
Yeah.
And as we know, if your super's not in line, sometimes the ATO won't even talk to you.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I've certainly seen is the tax office's attitude change drastically over the past, what is it now, sort of 4 years coming out of COVID, 4 or 5 years.
Oh, God, yep.
Yeah. They'd let everyone rack up the debts and then all of a sudden immediate enforcement.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's been a little bit frustrating from our perspective too, because the conversations that we've had, I remember specifically there was a time when I rang and we've just been probably maybe 12 months out of COVID. Now, a lot of the business owners really were hit hard. You know, I've had clients on the phone crying, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to do this, Lisa? You know, and you just frantically going, can we try this? Can we try this? Well, no, you can't because of that, and you can't because of that. And, you know, I remember with a client we worked with, we specifically rang and said, you know, we've done a lot of work and we truly believe, based on the trend of the trading of the business, that we can confidently pay off this debt in a period of time and then, but keep on top of current obligations. And I remember ringing and saying and explaining that we have done a lot of work around making sure that this will work. You know, the client's invested in this, we're invested in this, you want us to be invested in this, in getting this debt paid back. And I was just met with an absolute brick wall.
Yeah.
They're like, well, why can't they do it in 12, 24 months? I said, well, we told you we've done all the work around this. We can't guarantee that. But we can guarantee 36 months, you know.
Yeah,
and
that's actually what we need.
Yeah, that's actually what we need to guarantee that we could do this.
Yeah.
And still keep trading. Everyone keeps a job. Everyone's super's getting paid. Current BASs and IASs and things going forward will be paid, and you'll still get your debt paid.
Yeah.
And I was just met with an attitude that she just said, well, no. Go back and ask your client why they can't pay in 24 months. I said, but I know the answer. I'm telling you the answer. And I said, I'm here to try and negotiate so that everyone wins. You know, and I said, okay, if I hang up from you and I ring her and she says, no, she can't pay it in 24 months, and I ring you back, what would be the next step? She wouldn't even talk to me about the next step. Yeah. But then I can ring, you know, another day and I can get the best person on the phone.
And it'll be fine.
Oh, and they're like, yep, got it. Oh, you've done that? Yep, great. We would have asked you that. Okay, great. You know, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think it's the inconsistency around the ATO. And also I had one that just said, well, we're out of COVID. What's the problem? What's the problem? 12 months out of COVID with all this debt and lockdowns and, well, we're out of lockdown. What's your problem?
Think about what it's going to take for the business to actually pay that debt back,
years.
because that debt is only one piece of the puzzle going on in that business and its industry. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because that's something you and I have worked on too, where
payment plans.
Well, not only payment plans, but particularly where we've had several clients where they've racked up the debt, particularly off the back of COVID, slow periods, whatnot, working with the payment plans. Payment plans are denied, so we know what's coming, and that's where we've ended up working with administrators and liquidators to actually, okay, cool, the debt can't be managed. Let's call it early, right? Bring that in and actually going through that. One of the things we've been working on a few times now, it's a new policy coming out of COVID, was the small business restructures, or SBRs. So helping clients where, hey, the ATO's actually denied them on a payment plan, they've got the debt.
What now?
We know if we don't manage this, the ATO will escalate. Eventually, they will wind the business up. That
People will
can't
be
happen.
out of jobs, ripple effects.
So actually, we need to manage that. Government's released a small business restructure. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what have you found that businesses need to be thinking about if they're looking at a small business restructure?
Make sure your financials are up to date daily for that point to switch across. And also, I mean, you're in the meetings about when they're talking about it, but from my perspective, I'm making sure we're nailing the financials so that any decision you make at any given time is spot on. But, I mean, I think it's a great process, would you call it?
Policy,
I
guess.
But my first introduction was that roof plumbing company, and that one definitely slapped me across the face, that whole process, because it was the first time I was introduced to it. But far out did I learn a lot from that client. Yeah,
it's one of the lessons I took away was the nuance in it. Like that, in the background, that one or two, either code number 1, code number 2 in the eyes of the ATO makes no difference to the management of the business.
But from my perspective...
Yeah, it's like everything.
God, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was really hard.
Yeah.
So I would say anyone who's going to do it, oh my God, speak to someone, a bookkeeper that's done these sort of things and understands the implication of the software you use.
Yeah. Work with a bookkeeper who's done it before.
Yeah, because it ended up being such a cluster, and it actually didn't need to be. The slightest little tweak at the beginning and we were just flown through.
But not even the administrator knew of that thing.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I think the ATO is still learning how they're processing that and whatnot. And so, and funnily enough, I think we're still waiting for the new branch code for the client. I don't think it ever came through.
Oh, that's what it's called, the branch code.
Well, they call it a CAC code, CAC code, but we call it a branch code.
The SBR process can be an amazingly powerful tool, particularly for smaller businesses.
Yes.
You know, if, what is it? Your total debt's got to be under $1 million, and super's up to date, and I feel like there's one other thing that's escaping me.
Super's up to date. Super's up to date. Wasn't it? It's something about secured and unsecured debtors to suppliers in there, and all that comes into play.
They're more preferential things. Like there's a few things to make it flow, but really, you definitely have to have your super up to date, and you've got to have less than $1 million in liability. But being able to do that, work that with the ATO, we've seen it where it's really given the lifeblood back to businesses to recover off the back of COVID.
And I remember talking to the ATO in that department, and they were really good.
Yeah.
It was such a pleasure to talk to them, and they really wanted to help you. They understood the sensitivity of the situation. I found them to be really professional, really good.
Yeah, which can be pretty helpful. And that's the other thing I find too, like, time and time again, if you're working with a decent bookkeeper and you as an owner are just reasonably across your figures, and you can understand when you need help from the likes of the ATO.
Yes. Yep.
Because let's face it, when you're talking about compliance, for almost any business doing anything, you're going to have anywhere from like 25% minimum to up to 50% of your revenue, in all likelihood, running through various forms of government departments. That compliance is going to absorb that much cash. So therefore, if you need cash flow to recover, they're cutting deals with those people can be really powerful, particularly in the short term.
Absolutely.
But you've got to understand your figures, who you're dealing with,
Yes.
what your position is with them.
How exactly that's going to look.
Yeah, because I find time and time again, if you're proactive with them and upfront, actually they're remarkably helpful.
Yes, because they can see that you're trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not obstructing them. You're on the front foot. You're telling them what they need to know to make decisions for you, as we are. Yeah, they're very cooperative when you show that you give, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you really want to make it work.
Yeah, and you're serious about it.
Yes. Yeah, very serious about it.
Not trying to burn it.
Yeah.
Because going back to an earlier point about things that have changed in the industry, that's something that's absolutely changed from probably a decade ago, where it was far easier for, malicious operators to start a company, rack up massive amounts of debt to the ATO and everyone else, kill it, phoenix it.
Yep. Walk away.
Yeah.
Start up something new.
Yeah. And that's being tightened up a lot.
Well, that's part of the director number, isn't it?
Director
ID.
The director ID came out. When was that? Just a couple of years ago?
Oh, maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was a brand new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got...
It's only quite recent, yeah.
Single touch payroll, director ID. Like, this is what blows my mind. Like, let's say I'm my old man.
Yeah.
It's a plumber. I want to start a plumbing business. Awesome plumber. Hey, I can do this. I can make money plumbing. Yeah, cool. Oh, there's all this work associated with you just doing the work. You need a director ID. You need to be across your super. You need to set up your payroll in a very particular way.
Yes, God, get that right.
You need to be across multiple compliance obligations to multiple government departments. You need to worry about your liability perspective from what you're doing and your own trade. Certificates.
And understanding where that liability pops up.
Yeah.
Like when you collect an invoice, 10% of that is the government's.
Yep.
Keep it aside.
Yeah, but if you can, you know, and that also depends on what your cash flow movements are, and how the business is performing, whether you can actually do that. Because that sort of keeping the GST aside is very much an old school way of managing it. It's not bad, but
still works today if that's your model.
It doesn't work if your margins are less than 10% though.
Yes.
So that's one of the issues. But yeah, there's all this stuff that's crept in. Like, my old man tells stories about like in the 70s where like payroll, there was no such thing as POIG. It was just, you would literally be given cash, your gross amount in cash. Yeah. There was no such thing as super, no such thing as POIG. It was up to you. You would deposit cash in the bank.
Yeah,
it was up to you to declare your own income. Yeah, so you're getting your full pay packet.
No fair work.
The bill comes. Don't know about fair work, but
well, no one knew about it.
Well, from a work cover perspective, he tells stories about like riding the. He worked on Melbourne Central when it was being built, but he tells stories about like you would ride the load. So you'd be on street level. There's a crane, like 50 stories up. That is putting some pipes, and you need to get to the top of the building. Cool. You just jump on the load. You're literally
riding the load.
Yeah, you hold on and ride the load.
That wouldn't fly today.
Probably not. Yeah.
I'm not saying that people wouldn't do it, but I'm just saying it wouldn't.
Yeah. So that was a thing. Yeah.
God, yeah. No, those days are long gone.
Yeah.
A lot of the flexibility has gone out the window.
Yeah, and there's a corresponding, and it's a freaking good thing around what happens with safety and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
We all deserve to go home at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's not necessarily advocating for the old days. But my point is, businesses, if you want to get into business and you're serious about it, there's actually a whole heap of things that you need to consider, and you need help.
Before you actually do it.
Yeah, because you need help.
You need to consider what awards.
Yep.
I need contracts. Are there allowances? All these things. Yeah. Allowances used to just get brushed off to the side years ago. I remember when I first started, I'm like, why aren't they paying this? And, oh, wow, okay, so this is quite an education, telling clients, and then having to tell the clients that. I was often met with a bit of disgruntled...
Bit of resistance?
Yeah, just slight resistance. You could definitely feel it through the phone or in person, but... and I understand why they've had to regulate this, because people were being taken advantage of. So you always understand why they're doing it, you get it, just sometimes the executions...
Yeah.
Could be a little more finely tuned maybe, or delivered in a different... Well, the most recent thing is, it's not just compliance for business owners. As BAS agents, we have compliance too, that we have to keep on top of. So by 1 July, we've got to have our QMS for our business, quality management system. We've got to document everything about our business.
Right.
Yeah, and how we would handle a situation or... So, yeah, I've just got to...
Irrespective of business size? Wow.
And I don't believe anyone's actually going to read it. But I have to keep it updated should an occurrence come and they want me to provide that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be good for me as a business owner because it might help me streamline or identify other places in my business that I can streamline with my team. But, yeah, it's not just the business owners. As a business owner for me and a BAS agent, I have compliance also.
Yeah.
So, it's not just businesses that are feeling it, the agents are feeling it too.
Yeah, I think you see that level of stress come through. But one of the positives can be, that with stuff like that, you end up providing barriers to entry. So that there is real potential in that. You see it through safety measures, you see it through compliance, you see it through QMS requirements, you see it in some of my clients around like ISO requirements, things like that, that they provide barriers to entry, and they eventually, it takes time, but they eventually whittle out sort of cowboy operators. And that actually promotes almost like a healing inside an industry where prices return to normal, margins return to normal. There's one client right now, I met with them just yesterday, and they're in steel. And basically, they buy steel coils, turn them into something. It's pretty simple. And there are operators coming in now who are basically undercutting standard industry pricing by around about 40 to 50%.
Oh gosh.
Now that's
to compete with?
Yeah, that's utterly unsustainable. So there is no legitimate economic model in their industry that will support pricing at that level, which means what you've got is it's an unregulated industry, so you've got people operating basically in the shadows, and they're absorbing jobs. And the problem is that they can do that for
pocket change
a year or
compared
two.
to, yep.
Yeah, they're going to have different incentives. Like, they're probably paying their guys cash and not caring about the implications. Or we've even seen, certainly heard of where businesses have been set up as almost visa factories. So yeah, they're not making money on the thing that they're producing.
Yeah.
They're undercutting industry pricing.
Yeah.
That gets them work, so they need more people. But where they make the money is by selling the visa, because they need the people. Oh. That's absolutely a thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's amazing how people think, isn't it?
Yeah,
I love it when you get the clients that they put an awful lot of energy into going around the problem to avoid it. And I'm like, just get on board, and that energy could have just fixed it.
Oh, agreed. And what I'm referring to is clients who are being impacted by that. So it's like, okay, well, where do we navigate? So all of a sudden, we're not going to play there. Yeah, so they're handling the small jobs. So if they want to do dodgy stuff, cool, they can handle small jobs. Let them handle small jobs. We're going to aim for the big. Now, if that means we actually need to pivot the business towards a different sector, cool, we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
And let them play that game, because you can't play it forever.
No.
Yeah. Hence the benefit.
Pivot immediately.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of these, what you're talking about with the compliance obligations, the regulations, the QMS.
Everyone's on an even playing field.
It's a balance. Mm-hmm. Governments can over-regulate, starve an industry. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you need umpires in there.
Yep, you do. Yeah, you do. Human nature,
set
sometimes.
Rules, so on and so forth, yeah. So it's interesting like that.
Some people just come with a perspective to actively deceive, and some are just like, I just want to run my business.
Yeah.
I just want to earn some money, pay for groceries, take my family on a holiday.
Yeah. Well, the big thing with that too, that I end up speaking to a lot of clients about, is it's like real wealth is built after tax. Mm-hmm. Right. So a classic one we'll see is, particularly with smaller guys, and I get it, but they might have some jobs that they're doing for cash and the expenses are in the records, not the income. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. No, don't. It's like, someone wants to pay you cash? Cool. Let them pay you cash. It's legal tender. Bank it. Send them an invoice.
Exactly.
Why? Because through depreciation and other things that your accountant can do, your effective tax rate might come down to maybe even zero.
Yeah.
Right? So
there's other
what
ways
are you
to
trying
go
to
about
avoid?
it.
Yeah, you expose yourself to, by doing this, you're exposing yourself to massive risk.
Yes. When it could have been done another way legitimately.
Where legitimately it might be 0 to, at most it's probably 25%.
Yeah.
Okay, but hey, what does that allow you to do? It allows you to access the finance system. Mm-hmm. So banks can lend against that income.
Correct.
Because they can prove servicing.
Yes.
Now all of a sudden, if you can access the debt, you're buying money for say 10%, reinvest that into your business and achieve 15, 20, 30%. That's a good deal.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
And that's way, orders of magnitude more valuable than the tax you're trying to chase.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a narrow view. Just like, I don't want to pay tax.
No, hang on.
Yes, but you want to grow the business also, and then the bank's going to see you and go, well, that's a pretty shocking turnover you got there, mate. Yeah. So you can't sustain that.
And if you ever wanted to sell the business, what are you selling? Mm. Oh, buy this thing. It's got all this earnings. Yeah, where are they, mate? Oh, yeah, it's cash. Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, mate, it's all right. Yeah, mate.
Well, I saw one with, so we had a client once upon a time who wanted to take a portion, it's an legit idea. It's like, it had some merit. They wanted to take a portion of their profits and reinvest it in a diversified business. So totally different industry. And they had their eyes on a car wash because they were thinking, can kind of operate on its own, pretty low labour overhead, like no involvement. This could be interesting. And it was really funny. They found a car wash that was for sale, and we got the financials back. We took one look at it, and that was legit. That was their story. Here are the financials. Mm-hmm. So it makes no money. Basically, makes like 1% profit margin.
Yeah.
And we're like,
How's that?
What?
What were the expenses?
Yeah, so technically you're buying it at like 30 times EBITDA.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good multiple.
Too good to be true.
Well, yeah, they're like, mate, where's the income? Oh, it's cash.
Oh. You just devoured your business.
Yeah, but how do we... Okay, where is it?
It's great you're saying cash.
Do you have any records about how much cash and how...
Yeah,
Oh,
like
no, because it's cash.
50,000
Like,
was...
you know, like, it's... Oh, trust me. Dude, that's just... Walk away.
It's just cash. It's kind of like, oh, just write it off. Write it off.
Depreciation is a bit different.
But nice, you know, trigger words, you know.
Yeah, but that whole cash thing, it's like you're actually robbing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking too short term.
Yeah.
You're not thinking long term.
Yeah, and I think it's a very old school way of thinking too, where it's like, hey, the avoidance of tax versus the minimisation and management of it. Because it is a cost to civilization. And particularly in a first world country like Australia, you drive on a road, you access emergency services, you go to a hospital. Hey, it might not be perfect.
Lucky.
There's a total discussion to be had about what taxes, how much tax you pay and what it's spent on and so on and so forth. And that's the purpose of politics. Cool, go for it. Right? But it's like, it is absolutely a cost to civilization. So, you know, it's how we operate.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Speaking of running a business though, like, so you run your own business, you have a team around you. What have been some of the trials and tribulations of running a bookkeeping business?
Channeling the information. So each of us has our own little specialty. We've all worked across multiple industries over the years. We've all got vast experience. But the idea is we try to channel the information so that our clients get the benefit of all of that, all of us. So trying to, I guess, navigate that, but also, you know, how I might conduct myself will be completely different to how someone else conducts themselves to completely someone else, or getting, you know, like I said before, I'm not an average bookkeeper. Well, I'm not saying that I'm better. That's not what I'm saying. Let's just make sure we clear that in the editing. Yeah. I'm not a snob and I'm not an a-hole. I'm just saying, like...
probably top 5.
Thank you. Compliment. But, oh, you made me lose my train of thought now. Good on you.
That's the point.
There's your blooper.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is I have all this other experience that's not just the bookkeeping, and so I think a little differently sometimes. So trying to get that out of here to someone else. So then I try to keep on top of a little bit of all the clients. I'm not doing the day-to-day, but I'm talking to my girls regularly enough that I go, they'll be like, oh, hey, this happened, or I'm like, oh, how's this one going? Or, oh, geez, I looked at their financials, that's looking pretty good, and we just have those conversations. So I guess trying to keep a handle on everyone from sort of up here. Other challenges running a business. From a client perspective, I would say it's who I'm dealing with in the client's premises. So everyone's well-meaning, but sometimes information's held back. So we had this exact conversation this afternoon. We were talking about that plumber, and there was a scenario around a pay, and the
terminations.
Yes, and
yeah.
If I had known that information, that would have completely changed the way I approach something.
Yeah.
So we're not with you day to day, but talk to us.
Yeah, you're told that 2 guys have been immediately terminated.
Yeah.
Which sends off alarm bells because
hang
on, unless it's gross misconduct, what's going on here?
Uh-oh.
You could be, hey client, you could be exposing yourself to something.
Yes, and there was a panicked phone call on Monday to him.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Whereas the reality on the ground is like, these guys are taking drugs on site.
Yes.
Came back to the factory,
Yeah.
off their head, immediately terminated. They then stole the vehicles, drove them across the other side of the city. The vehicles smell like dope. The cops had to be called to retrieve the vehicles. Now they have to be like, there's a whole cost of getting them
That's a classic
cleaned because
gross
they've
misconduct.
basically... into the criminal sphere because they've basically stolen the vehicles and taken them effectively for like this kind of joyride.
Yeah.
This drug binge joyride.
What on earth were they thinking? Sidebar, but
yeah, the things you see.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We've seen a lot of it.
Okay, cool. But
or withholding vehicles to get final pays when you weren't entitled to them, but you've also been
that was a classic.
You've been caught out doing a side thing with someone else.
Well, that was
it wasn't
remember that company we were dealing with, like they were turning over tens of millions of dollars, but their gross profit margin was negative.
Shocking.
And I was like,
there's something
either
wrong.
they're mispricing or something's being stolen
Something
somewhere.
wrong.
I remember you got access to the books.
Yeah.
It was 20 minutes you called me and said you found it. And the guy who was running the Geelong branch was they were ordering materials, sending it to site, getting that stolen, saving it for themselves.
Yep.
Had the little side gig going on, and then they were taking the staff and the subcontractors out on fishing trips and running it through the company. Yeah, you found.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Naughty.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, awesome.
And then kept the vehicle.
Then he was terminated and stole the vehicle.
Because he was the victim, Dave.
Yeah.
God, didn't you know that?
Oh, fuck yeah.
He was so hard done by.
Awesome. Like, yeah.
The audacity sometimes. Yeah, you just sit on the phone like, oh.
Yeah.
What?
So, on that extent, like, when it comes to running the money, being exposed to the money side of a business and dealing directly with owners, like, are you as a BAS agent ever trained in some of the psychological and emotional things that you end up having to deal with when you're dealing with people and money and stress?
Am I trained? God, no.
Yeah, it's pretty vicious.
But I get my own coaching done.
Yeah.
So over the years working with my coach, I've been able to learn tools to go, because sometimes we cop the aggression. They're not angry at us, they're angry at the situation, and we're a trusted person that they feel okay to let it out. So we, especially during COVID, the weight that we were all wearing, there was just so much mental health issues for BAS agents, and there was a bit of a mass exodus. People were just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So, we deeply feel what the client's feeling, and they confide in us. Well, we have that confidentiality agreement, so they can. Sometimes they tell us too much, but that's not the point.
It might be under the changes they're proposing. But the reason I ask is, like, one of the administrators we've worked with before, I took them out for lunch one time. I asked them the same question, and they said, yeah, we've actually done. They had been through a form of kind of suicide prevention.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, training, because they're dealing with people who are about to lose it. Like they're either liquidating or administrating.
Yeah, you get
so
that.
Maybe their house is being sold out from underneath them or something like that. Yeah.
And from their perspective, they've lost everything.
And she had 2 clients who have killed themselves off the back of the financial stress. Yeah.
I just got
goosebumps. I know. Like, because this is where, for me, I'm so...
with her forever.
Yeah. That's a hard one to deal with.
Yeah.
And something I will never forget, and this is where I see I can't emphasize enough for anyone running a business anywhere in the world to have someone across your records and make sure it's accurate and up to date, is I'll never forget this one client that we had, it's like back in 2014 or something like that. And they'd just won a maintenance contract with, I think it was with Village Cinemas at the time.
Oh, nice.
And they came back to the office, they'd gone into tender, pitched it, won it, great. But they came back pretty sad-sacked. And I asked him, I was like, winning work's a good thing, mate. What's going on? He's like, yeah, Dave, it is. It's just... and he then told me he knew the company that he'd won it from.
Oh, no.
And it turned out that guy, he had... Oh, I'm trying to remember the story, but basically the guy shot himself.
Oh.
So he lost the Village Cinema contract was the last thing holding back the ATO from coming in and liquidating the business, and he was going to lose the house. So rather than he had 3 kids and a wife, they didn't know. So rather than have his family out on the street and lose the house, he shot himself to trigger his life insurance policy to make sure the debt would be covered. I'm like, where
Get
was the
to that.
bookkeeper? Yeah, but who was the bookkeeper? How do you get to that?
Yeah.
They don't do that. Like the HEO doesn't just start there. You've got to go through multiple layers.
Steps, yep. There's so much
there's
that happens
literally
leading up
like
to that.
the coloured letters.
Yeah.
You're talking about the red one at
Yeah,
the end, and
yeah.
it's like the colours
Got
match
a
their
whole lot
emotional
of-
state.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, who the was working with him? Right? Like, where was the accountant? Where was the bookkeeper? It should never get that bad. Right? There are so many other options.
That's our job.
Yeah.
That's our job.
And that's the thing. Like, I can't mention it. Like, if anyone out there is listening to this and in that situation, it's like you can get help. You can speak to someone like
reach
yourself.
out. Absolutely.
Reach out to your BAS agent. Yeah. Speak to them. You know,
there's options.
Yeah,
there's absolutely always options. There's always options.
Yeah, there's absolutely always options to deal with it, and a surprising amount of options. There's so many things you can do. Yeah.
Just got to talk to the right people. But that's the thing. As a BAS agent, you know, we're there with you. You talk to us.
Yeah.
We take some of that burden from you, or we can, you know, put you at ease with things. Say, hey, but you don't need to worry about that because you got this, remember? Or because when they're so far in, that's all they can see.
Yeah.
But we're like, but you got that opportunity, that coming in there, that there. You can push that out there. You know, we see all of that.
Yeah.
And don't panic. It's not that bad. If we're panicking, you panic, but we're not panicked.
But also, if your compliance is taken care of,
you're good.
Great, that's all you need to know.
What's the worst can happen after that?
Is it taken care of? Yes, cool. Now you can focus exclusively on the business side of things, which is where you should be focused.
Yeah.
But if the bookkeeping side is neglected, then automatically the compliance side is neglected.
Yes.
And now you're dealing with the government who's going to get really aggravated and have the power. Ultimately, that ends with guys with guns coming to take your stuff. Mm-hmm. That's how it ends.
It does, yeah.
It just does.
Yeah.
Their power's unlimited. Okay, cool. Well, the good thing is, if you give them their pound of flesh, they'll leave you alone. So just figure it out.
Just
deal
be
with it.
regular,
Cool. Now
keep
you can
on
focus
top of
the
your lodgements, and
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be that hard. Like, just get the fundamentals right. And you can, you know, again, with bookkeeping, it's not just about bookkeeping. Sometimes we'll help them with a process. So we'll be like, you know what? This is looking...
Yeah.
I had an example when I was employed days, and procedures helped me identify theft in the business.
100%.
Because I was a bit A-type personality, and I loved my process, love typing them up, love a good process.
Love a good process.
Love a good process. Gets me excited. And but that's my life example. I saw how powerful that process was. Everyone looks like, what am I typing this up for? No one's ever going to read it. No, but if you follow it, it becomes just the norm. You don't even have to think about the procedure anymore, but we've taught you that way. So if the company has the process that way, anything that's out of line is going to instantly flash red at you. And that's exactly what it did for me. But at the time, I can't remember the details around it, but anyway, she ended up leaving this lady because I was kind of, I'm not going to say bullied, but I was basically like, oh, Lisa, you're being difficult, you're being too strict, you're being controlling. And I'm like...
So you were bullied?
Stealing. I'm like, just stealing. And sure enough, we found along the grapevine about probably 2-3 years later that she got caught stealing $50,000 from her next employer.
Yeah.
Like, told you.
Cool. So
and that was the simplest thing we did.
Okay, so on that, how do bookkeepers steal money, and what can a business owner do to prevent that?
God, I've never thought of that. I don't think of that thing. I don't think about doing the wrong thing.
No.
How would you steal money? Well, I mean, I out of habit, don't like access to clients' bank accounts. I have it with one.
Yeah.
I have it with one, and that's it. And he has full access to everything.
Yeah.
And I have a policy with him. If I make a mistake, even if it's the tiniest little thing, I remember walking into him and telling him, and he goes, "I don't care." And I said, "Yes, but I have to tell you. So if an opportunity comes and someone's questioning me and I'm saying to you, I didn't do it, you're going to believe me." Yeah. So out of habit, I just don't have access to bank accounts. Simple as that.
Access to the bank accounts.
Yep, access to the bank accounts.
Big one, you can prevent it that way.
Check their bills. So A lot of clients tend to use ABA for convenience, and that's fine. I'm happy to work with that.
Oh, yeah.
I always do a quick look over of the bank details on the document attached, which the document attached we can come back to. But just a quick glance to just check that they haven't been hacked.
Yeah, because someone in your position
changed.
who has access to the financial software, if you're creating an ABA file, which is an automatic bank authorization file,
I don't even know, to be honest.
I think that's what it stands for. It's basically a thing you upload to internet banking and it can pay
you
multiple
can pay
bills at once.
So many at once, just
one
save you
transfer.
hours in the day.
Yeah, so you can go into the financial software and change
the bank account.
The company's, the supplier's bank details to your bank details.
Yep.
Feels like you're paying your bills. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's one way. Yeah. Geez, I don't know. Overbilling? I don't think.
Yeah,
I don't think
overbilling
like
and
that.
do another one. The things to watch out for.
And have a strong approval process in place for the bill. So if they're, classic example of what you just said, they go in and change the supplier's bank details, there could be false bills in there.
Yes.
So they could be saying, oh, it's Right Brain Insights bill, but actually the payment for those ones is coming to me.
Yes.
But you think it's Dave.
Yeah.
You think you're paying Dave.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're going to use ABA files, absolutely, because they save time, but I always just do a real quick glance at the document to check that the bank details, or if there's a software, Xero for instance, is set up. So if there is a change in an employee's bank details, a supplier's bank details, a notification email will be sent out. Yes, so that's really good.
Yeah.
And I could be so busy, but if I see that little thing pop up that a bank account has changed, I click straight on it instantly. I don't muck around, and then I ring the client. Did you just change that bank details or something? That's something I'll always jump on immediately, no matter what's going on.
Yeah, and I really advocate for clients to be their subscriber to their financial software, so you have control of it, not the bookkeeper.
Yes.
Right, you grant access. You are the company owner, so doing that. Making sure you've got appropriate authorization levels inside that software.
So purchase orders is great.
Yeah, and appropriate authorization levels in your banking software as well.
Yeah.
Limiting that. And if you de-risk that with an appropriate crime cover on your insurance, that'll provide an offensive and a defensive layer to your business. Because if you're the owner, you can't do everything. Your eyes need to be on growing the business. So eventually you're going to have to delegate this stuff. So, okay, think about who you're dealing with. Another thing I've seen that exceptionally rare is where the bookkeeper is too close to the employees. So they develop a emotional connection to the employees, and they end up pushing through, particularly like extra, you'll see time theft. They're not pushing back on things.
Well, I talked to you about an overtime just before, didn't I?
Yeah, work 9 hours, actually I'll pay you 10. Yeah, it's okay, you know, we know we've gone out for beers and so on. So there's that. That's on the theft side. I think the other end of the spectrum is more on the negligence side, deeming into that. Negligence, not caring, perhaps not
oblivious.
Yeah, oblivious, or not pushing back on clients on things they should, that can lead to, hey, things not being reconciled in the right way, and therefore
I have a classic
compliance obligations missed, things not being reconciled in the right way. Now you've got that's impacting business decisions that you're making. Like one I'll never forget was we were doing a scoping session with a building company, and we saw that. When we looked at their cash flow, they were making, it appeared on their financial records that they were making plenty of profit.
Yeah.
Profit margin's really good. Cash flow, like, very poor.
Yeah.
Okay, have a look at that. Massive, basically a massive equity movement. So it reads as if, hey guys, what are you spending all your money on? You're moving it reads as if you're moving the money out as owners. Okay. And I said there was two guys.
Yep.
I'm like, what are you spending the money on? And they're like, Dave, we don't. We're in payroll. We don't take any money out. I'm like,
so what the hell is that?
So what's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't know. Okay, so we let's bring up the Xero file. Jump into the Xero file. We can see the account. Cool. Click on that. Bunnings transactions. Thousands of them. I'm like, you're a building company. I don't know. But I'm like, you're a building company. It's materials. I'm like, guys, you're telling me you've just...
Have you renovated your home?
No. These are legit...
business expenses.
These are legitimate business expenses, materials for job sites that they're doing. But guess what? They have accessed funding from one of the major banks to fund their own building projects. They're acting as a builder and a developer.
Oh,
so
okay.
they've got funding behind the projects, but inadvertently they've just committed mortgage fraud because their profit margins are nowhere near what they should be. Because if you were to take the expenses out of that, cash flow is the same. But if you've got to recognise the expenses, it's not an equity movement, it's an expense. And now all of a sudden, banks will lend at 4 to 6 times.
Yeah.
So their servicing just dropped. So I'm like,
uh-oh.
But all that was the bookkeeper running Bunnings, thousands of Bunnings transactions through an equity. It's so clearly an expense. They never thought about it. And they brought it up with the bookkeeper and she had no answer.
No answer?
She wasn't stealing, but it's like, what?
You've got to ask questions.
Seriously?
How
do you even do that?
Probably find us annoying sometimes, but we want the detail so we understand we're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, because in that case, they had to refinance all their projects because the moment they went and declared their tax returns, they had massively different profit margins to what the bank was expecting, and all of a sudden they couldn't service.
And all the work involved in that.
Yeah, because they were working with a tier 1 bank, one of the big 4. They had to move down into a different tier of lenders at a higher interest rate, which changes the profit margins on their developers. So they could still do it, but this was all through a reconciliation problem and therefore it was just the bookkeeper's competence, right?
And this is again where we have to have specific checks in place of things you're checking. Like one of the first things we target is the director's loan account. We're like,
oh, that's a classic. Yeah.
What's going on here? How's that weekend? Or we're just. It's an opportunity for us to talk and joke with the client too, but also bring to their attention, hey, there's just a few funny things here. What's that about? Or and once we get to know your business, you won't hear from us. Churn it, but if the slightest change, we're on the phone.
When in doubt,
what happened here?
Yeah, when in doubt, director's loan.
Yeah,
and and that's the legitimate way to deal with it. I had a client once call me out. I think they were a plumber. This was years back, and they wanted to buy plumbers. But they wanted to buy a stake in a racehorse.
Stake in a racehorse, yeah, okay.
And they're like, no, they'd already done it. And it was in the it was in the financials.
After.
It was like $6,000 or something. They're like, oh, where do I put it to? I'm like, mate, director's loan. What do you? Why are you even asking? It's like there's only one appropriate place for that.
I love how they get really creative though. They're like, but I could argue that I take clients to the stories that I get sometimes. Sometimes they're very entertaining. Yeah. Some of my phone calls with clients start with, and I'm like, answer's probably going to be no. It's just as soon as they pick up the phone, they're like, and I'm like, and one was like, he was like, what was he? It was like a contract, like he did like white collar stuff. So consultant. So can I buy a ride-on lawnmower? I'm like, oh, please tell me how you're going to link this back to your business.
But the truth is you can actually buy whatever you want inside the business.
It's just how you
It's just whether or not you can deduct it. And this is where you can legitimately have 2 sets of books.
Yeah.
There's your management figures.
Correct.
Cool.
And then
your tax returns.
Yeah.
Just because you buy a lawnmower in a business that has nothing to do with lawnmowing. Cool.
But then also helping them understand
that
if you take this out of the company money, this is going to be a loan that you're taking from the company. And that's where they get a little bit flustered, like, what do you mean it's my company? I'm like,
Yeah.
Financially.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the sort of landmines that come up in conversation. And I always say, if you're ever feeling, frisky, that you want to do something outrageous, please pick up the phone and call me first. So I can tell you, this is not going to work for you because of this, but if you choose to go from here on in, you know the consequences. Yeah.
And also another way that it works, and you and your team are really good at this, is actually you're part of a larger ecosystem inside a company. The way I love to frame it with clients is you've got, particularly on the financial side, you've got the bookkeeper looking after the records, accurate and up-to-date records.
Day to day.
That are feeding it into an accountant who's looking after the income tax side of things, as well as your asset structuring to make sure that you're building and protecting wealth. And from our perspective, from a CFO lens, okay, cool. past, present, future, because now we've got accurate and up-to-date data, so we can understand the history. We know where we've been, where we're at, so we can begin understanding the future implication of decisions.
And have confidence with that.
Yeah, but we can actually talk to each other, because based on, the future growth projections, that now creates income tax issue.
Implication, yeah.
Yeah, well, it starts to shape it. And that can be fed back to the accountant, which actually allows them to be more proactive.
Yeah.
Just that simple example, none of that is possible if the underlying data is not
up to date.
Yeah, and there's been a number of clients where you and I have worked together to reshape the chart of accounts in order to tell a more accurate story as to what the economics of this business actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you and I created we created a bit of a standard operating procedure for how we manage the ATO side of things. Yeah. So that we know for all clients we're working with, hey, it'll look like this, and that feeds into the forecast that we're doing.
Yeah, and it's not scary, is it?
No.
Like it's...
And
a lot of business owners think, I don't know that side. I'm like, no, you have to know that side. You have to know it, because you're going to notice straight away if we're going to pick up on this, but if we're running your profit and loss and all of a sudden, profit significantly declines or cost of goods significantly goes up, we're like, whoa, what happened here? Someone's looking at it for you.
Which is a good thing.
Your backup.
Yeah.
When you don't have the capacity to be able to look, we're looking.
Yeah.
And we're going, hey, Dave, did you notice here? What happened here?
Yeah.
Oh, I had to buy this.
They're actually little...
Oh, okay, so I can adjust that in the back end for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the GST, doesn't change the tax. It just changes so that we have a more accurate picture of how your May went.
Yes, one of the ways I describe it is, as a business owner, if you've got that team working together, the bookkeeper's talking to the accountant's talking to the bookkeeper, you've got someone inside the business, CFO, from a financial leadership perspective, is able to talk to both, so on and so forth. You've just created not only a recipe for growth and maximising value, particularly like from a due diligence perspective, if you ever have an exit event, but you've also created a whole ecosystem of like check engine lights.
Yeah.
If something seems odd, it gets flagged
quickly.
Yeah, and that might be something simple, using the car analogy, like, hey, low tyre pressure.
Heads up.
You can probably keep driving, but like, check this out.
Yeah, or just watch it.
Versus, like, you check engine lights coming on, but hey, there's something really wrong here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of, that can be the difference of making or breaking. If you wait until the end of the year and then you see your accountant, and then you work, a lot of accountants don't do your tax return until the following May.
Correct.
You're like 9 months out, plus the year of what's already happened. You can't change it then.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at this more regularly, you can pivot in that year as you go and completely change how that looks in May.
The classic one is if the business is growing very aggressively and the income tax situation is changing, you need to be very careful about how you manage your income tax installments, and also when you lodge your financials. Otherwise, you end up running the risk of that classic double whammy where the accountant waits until May the following year to lodge it. They've made no installments. There's a massive change. You end up having to pay that, and then that next BAS you're hit with almost like all that tax again, plus a little bit, plus a
little bit, Yeah,
because they assume
plus your actual lodged tax return. So good luck with you there.
Yeah, so you get this double whammy. We've probably had like 10 phone calls over the time I've been where customers have thought they're going out of business because of just that. They've been hit with that iceberg.
Like,
hey, we got 20 grand in the bank and we just got a 400 grand bill. How do we navigate this? Well, one client was 5 years in a row they hadn't done income tax. I don't know how they flew under the radar, but it was 5 years built up.
How did they fly under the radar?
I don't know. They changed accountants. I think that's probably had something to do with it. But yeah, we ended up having to put multiple payment plans in place for the underlying entity and the individuals to manage that. It took about 2 years to manage.
Oh, wow. But you did.
Like we just had to spread it.
And what would have seemed so overwhelming and hopeless at that moment, you're like, 2 years later, it's just like, that was easy.
Well, the crazy part, and this is the team coming together.
Yeah.
So that particular client, you work with them too. that particular client, that of a tax event, at the same time as they just put a deposit down for a multi-million-dollar house.
Ah, yes.
So, and they needed to secure financing on that house. But
God.
Banks hate legacy tax debt.
Yep.
I was warning them about that. They were dealing directly with the bank. And the bank was, oh no, it'll be fine.
Oh, they always tell you that.
Until it went to credit. It wasn't fine.
Credit's like,
And
no,
then,
it's not.
Yeah, we had to scramble with a very, very competent broker.
Oh, wow.
That'd
be hard to come across.
Get the deal across. Yeah. Because these tax debts would massively interrupt. It's just a big no-no from a bank policy perspective.
It is what it is. We all know what our obligations are. So I just say to clients, stop fighting it.
They didn't.
Oh, okay. So
That's
they
the
didn't have
thing.
people like us, I guess.
Yeah, they didn't have the team around them, and then they get this surprise. Oh, by the way, here's everything you owe for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, we've all just walked in like,
I've just put like a $500,000 deposit on a house.
Yeah.
And if I can't get the financing, what do? I lose that deposit.
Gone. So, and you could have used that to pay all this.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big part. So it's, hey, okay, what's the growth plan got to be? So in order, straight away, it's like, right, what does the business now need to do at a minimum to carry all this extra debt?
Yep.
Okay, that's coming into the plan. Right, what does that mean for the guys on the ground? How much do we need to sell? How much do we need to manufacture? What margins does that need to be in order to safely, manage that debt? How do we communicate that to the team internally?
How do we execute it?
To the team externally, including the ATO, and even in their case, even out to suppliers, because a key part of it was actually managing some of their supplier network, keeping them up to date on the deal, and be like, hey, we're going to have to stretch our accounts a little bit more, because right now there ain't enough to go around.
Because they don't want to lose your business.
Anywhere.
They don't want to lose the money either.
So we could communicate it, and going into it, pulling an administration event was like not available because of the financing.
Yeah.
So you must trade through in that regard.
Yeah.
But that's just an owner. They're making a life decision, misunderstanding the implications of where their business is really at.
Yeah.
I
Thinking
describe
things are
that
floating
like
along well,
Titanic.
not knowing that big landmine is just sitting there waiting.
Yeah. I call it the Titanic. They're cruising along thinking they're unsinkable.
Iceberg.
Actually, there's that iceberg right in front. Yeah. So
God, I could feel the coldness of that chill in that moment when they found out.
Yeah. The crazy part was just how confident the banker was initially. Oh no, you'll get that. Oh, dude, I don't.
No, mate.
Are you aware of the? And we briefed them on the situation. But yes.
They didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't in a checkbox, Dave.
Yeah, entirely.
Didn't tick the box.
Entirely. It's an interesting one. But yeah, Lisa, thank you so much.
No,
It's
you're
an
very
absolute
welcome.
pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Wrapping it up, I'd ask who should I be talking to next? Why?
I think an accountant, because I'm day to day. They're sort of, higher up looking down. So I think their perspective would be really interesting, especially around the small business restructure process.
Yeah, true.
But also how they look at clients and how they look at, bookkeepers. So often there's a real disconnect between the two. But, at Cavill Co, we always prefer to work with the partners. We want the holistic approach for the client. We want the client to win. So we're in with anyone. Yeah. We'll play in the field with anyone. So I guess an accountant would be a really interesting perspective, and I'd love to watch that one.
Yeah, cool.
And maybe, so I'm all about the fundamentals, the day-to-day things, right? So nail the fundamentals, nail the processes, and you're right. But the other side to that is if you're employing people, that's a whole different ball game. So maybe like a HR expert. Yeah,
that's another world of landmines.
Yeah, lots of landmines.
Yeah.
Well, we see it in the media a lot, right? And they're just loving to make examples of people, so you don't want to be one of those people. And, most employers set out with intentions to do the right thing, and it's just things they don't know. We just had one client we just engaged, and he has been paying kilometres for the employees to drive from home to work. I'm like, what are you doing?
Sounds nice.
Yeah, I'm like, generous, amazing.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the fundamentals right. He did it on his own, and he thought he was doing the right thing, but now it's bit him in the ass. Whereas if we had been engaged from the beginning, we'd be like, hang on a second, let's get some contracts so that you can at least have something in there to draw that money back if you chose to. You don't have to choose to, but So get the right people on board.
Nothing stops you doing that.
No, correct, absolutely. Reward your employees. I'm all for that. It's just a little bit trickier how you go about it now. But I think just get the fundamentals right. So HR to me is fundamentals, especially if you're employing staff. Know your awards. I just did an audit on a company that had 5 awards in their just one business. So you might just think, it's just this award, or just clerical. Well, no, hang on, there's a provision for that in the vehicle repair and maintenance award for that role. So, and they're paid different rates. So these are the finer details that you really have to be across, and you wouldn't even know where to begin. I know when I was learning, I didn't know where to begin. So get that and the contracts. Then there's a very clear line where the boundaries are. And also, so your payroll, your BAS agent knows exactly how to process it swiftly. So if there's a lot of question around things, did they do this? Travel here. Well, because there's a lot of complexity in it, right? So especially with travel. So get the fundamentals right. Get an HR person. Cool. They will tell you from a completely different perspective. Yeah.
It'd be an interesting discussion.
Yes, it would. And I want to watch that one too.
Yeah, happy days. Well, wrapping it up, Lisa, where can people find you? Via you, we work together, or you can reach out to me via email, I guess. So your website, cavillandco.com?
Work in progress. Maybe by the time, I promise, by the time this is released,
we'll add it
there
to
will
the
be a website. Cavill Co, something.
Yeah.
Otherwise email lisa@cavillandco.com.au or call me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Easy done.
Easy
done. Yeah, or they can reach out to me via the Right Brain Insights website. Go from there. Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's been fun.
Easy done.